So a lot of people have asked me through the years, Jeffrey, you mentioned a lot about your upbringing on the northern coast in New Brunswick, the North Shore as we call it. There is no shore like the North Shore, that's for sure. C'est le Lucien. But what were summers like in the 70s for poor people on the North Shore? Well, it was like going to the beach, enjoying activities, playing softball or scrub or pick up baseball or football, collecting football, hockey, and baseball cards. We collect cards year round. But a big thing for us would be going for Chinese food during the late evening and going to the bar drive-in, the mountain drive-in, or whatever drive-in that was still open in the 70s and were open till the late 70s to see a Charlton Heston movie. Could have been an airport movie, Planet of the Apes, Soylent Green. But this movie, I don't remember it coming to many drive-ins at the time, even though it's a typical drive-in movie. And my sources say it only made $4 million at the box office, which makes absolutely no sense because when this came out, everybody was talking about this movie because it was another one of Charlton Heston's great sci-fi films. He did several of them from Planet of the Apes into the 1970s. So today we're talking about the very underrated and the very, very influential, the Omega Man. It's also stylized with Alpha Omega, the Omega Man. This 1971 American post-apocalyptic action film was directed by Boris Sagal and starred Charlton Heston as a survivor of a pandemic. It was written by John William Corrington and Joyce Corrington, based on the 54 novel by Rod Serling, alumni, Richard Matheson, called I Am Legend. The film's producer, Walter Seltzer, went on to work with Heston again in the dystopian science fiction film Soylent Green, which came out 2 years later. I done a podcast on that, Edward G. Robinson's last role. Now, this is the second adaptation of Matheson's novel. The first was Last Man on Earth, 64, which starred Vincent Price. That was more, actually a better movie than this one, because seeing Vincent Price battling zombies has to be seen to be believed. A third adaptation, I Am Legend, starring Will Smith, was released in 2007 and borrowed the film's tagline. This is when Will Smith was still relevant. Now, screenplay by the Corringtons, again, Anthony Zerbe, a very underrated character actor. You saw him in The Dead Zone, co-starred. And there's a multiracial relationship that the Heston character has with the beautiful Rosalind Cash. And he also have a sex scene together, which I think was very, very critical to its box office lack of success, because some places in the South wouldn't show it. Cinematography by Russell Meddy, edited by William H. Ziegler, who did a great job. Music by Ron Grenier. Production company was, of course, Seltzer Productions, distributed by WB, and ironically, there was product placement in the movie. I'll get in that in a second. Only 98 minutes. I think there's an extended version out there. Only $4 million in rentals. Now, in this one, in March 75, a Sino-Soviet border conflict escalates in a full-scale war in which biological warfare destroys most of the human race. U.S. Army Colonel Robert Neville, M.D., is a scientist based in Italy. As he begins to succumb to the plague, he injects himself with an experimental vaccine, rendering immune. Now, by August 77, Neville believes he's the plague's only immune survivor. Part of this, he visits abandoned, grocery stores. He goes to a movie theater that's playing Woodstock on on repeat or Truey's repeat. It's for some very effective early scenes. Struggling to maintain his sanity, he spends his days patrolling the now desolate LA, hunting and killing members of the family. No reference to Charles Manson here. A cult of plague victims who return into homicidal, nocturnal, albino mutants was some of my favorites. Now, true flashbacks. Neville remembers how martial law was imposed, and the majority of people who succumbed to the plague were killed instantly by asphyxiation. At night, living atop a 45 apartment building equipped with an arsenal of weaponry, Neville is a prisoner in his own home. He is besieged by the family who seeks to kill him. There's very effective scenes when, like a catapult cluster bomb comes in, he's dressed up like some kind of 17th century throwback. It's quite interesting. Now, the family attempts to extract Neville from his residence have failed, due in part to their insistence of using archaic weaponry in siege warfare. When not hunting Neville, the family destroys any remnant of science, blaming technology for the war, hence their reluctance to attempt more modern means to kill Neville. Now, one day, as Neville is in a department store helping sell to new clothing, he spots a healthy woman who immediately flees. He pursues her outside, but later chalks it up to imagination, having earlier elucidated about multiple telephones ringing. He finds the corpse of a family member and remarks that the final stage of disease will kill them all. On another day, the family finally captures Neville. After a summary show trial, he's found guilty of heresy by the family's leader, Jonathan Matthias, a former news anchorman who was seen in what he called the flashback, which played by Zerbe, very effective. Neville is sentenced to death and nearly burned at the stake, tied to a large wooden wheel representing modern technology in, of all places, Dodger Stadium. He is rescued by Lisa, the woman he had early dismissed as hallucination, and Dutch, a former medical student. Lisa and Dutch are part of a group of survivors, none of whom exceed the age of 30. Although their youth has given them some resistance to disease, they are still vulnerable to it and will eventually succumb to mutation, similar to the Miri episode of Star Trek. Now, Neville realizes salvaging humanity would take years, as he will need a long time to duplicate the original vaccine. He believes extending his immunity to others may be possible by creating a serum from his own blood. Reverse vampirism, of course. Now, Neville and Lisa return to Neville's apartment, where they began treating Lisa's brother Richie, who was succumbing to the disease. Neville and Lisa are about to have a romantic evening together, just as the generator runs out of fuel, and the lights go off. The family then attacks, sending Matthias' second in command, brother Zachary, to climb up the outside of Neville's building to open the balcony of his apartment. Neville leaves Lisa upstairs as he goes to the basement garage to restart the generator. Neville returns to the apartment to find Zachary right behind an unsuspecting Lisa. Neville shoots him and he falls off the balcony to his death, dropping his spear on the balcony as he goes. Now, if the serum works, Neville and Lisa plan to leave the ravaged city with the rest of the survivors and start new lives in the wilderness, leaving the family behind to die. Neville is successful in creating the serum and administers it to Richie. Once cured, Richie reveals the family headquarters to Neville, which is the LA Civic Center, but insists that the family is also human and that Neville's cure should be administered to them as well. Neville disagrees with him, so Richie goes to the family by himself to try to convince them to take the serum. Matthias refuses to believe that Neville would try to help them, accuses Richie of being sent to spy on them, and has him executed. After finding a note that Richie left, Neville rushes to rescue him, but instead finds his dead body tied to a judge's chair in a courtroom. Now, Lisa quickly and unexpectedly succumbs to disease and becomes one of the family. They kind of look literally like albinos. Returning home, Neville tells Lisa about Richie's death, but she already knows has betrayed Neville by giving Matthias and his followers access to Neville's home. Matthias, who finally has the upper hand, forces Neville to watch as the family sets his home and equipment on fire. Neville does break free, and once outside with Lisa, he turns and raises his gun to shoot Matthias, who is looking down from the balcony. The gun jams, giving Matthias enough time to hurl Zachary's spear at Neville, mortally wounding him. The next morning, Dutch and survivors discovered Neville dying in a fountain, what he called saturated with his blood. He hands Dutch a flask of the blood serum and then dies. Dutch takes Lisa, weakened and compliant because of the sunlight, away, and the survivors leave the city forever. Now, what really hurts this end scenes is that Jeff Bridges nor Kurt Russell played their young male assistant, who was really good. And what really hurts the whole movie, only Heston, Zerbe, and Cash are carrying the plot. And although Richie is a very good young actor, Eric Lanavel, who became a little bit bigger in the black movie community later on. Now, this is more almost like, it's not blaxploitation, but it's close you're going to get because it has a strong multicultural flavor to it. Because Rosalind Cash is a hero like anything else, and she has a kind of a nude scene with Charlton Heston, again, which was very shocking at the time. Now, the film does differ from the novel, the previous film, in numerous ways. In the book, humanity is destroyed by a bacterial plague spread by bats and mosquitoes, which turns the population to vampire-like creatures, whereas in this film, biological warfare is the cause of the plague that kills most of the population by asphyxiation and turns most of the rest into nocturnal albino mutants. Screenwriter Joyce Corrington holds a doctorate in chemistry and felt that this was more suitable for an adaptation. Now, in Chuck Heston's autobiography, In the Arena, he mentioned that the crucifixion scene with Neville was not in the original script. As it turned out, the scene was felt to fit quite well into the storyline, so it was left in. Exterior filming took place throughout LA. Neville's house is still on the backlot of Warner Brothers Ranch. Now, as part of the plot, the filmmakers needed to create a depopulated metropolis without CGI. This was accomplished by filming on Sunday mornings in the center of LA's business district, which in late 1970 was quiet on early weekend mornings. Despite careful planning by the film crew, some exterior shots captured bystanders and moving cars in the background of some scenes. Now, the Whoopi Goldberg, who made a bit of a mistake on this, remarked that the kiss between the characters played by Heston and Cash was one of the first interracial kisses to appear in a movie. In actual fact, several movies had shown interracial kissing long before this, of course, with Island in the Sun often quoted as being the first mainstream Hollywood movie to do so. In '92, when Goldberg had her own network interview talk show, she invited Heston to be a guest and asked him about the kiss. After discussing whether Heston received any flack for the kiss at the time, Goldberg said that she wished that society could get past interracial relations being an issue, at which point Heston leaned forward and demonstrated on the unsuspecting Goldberg to her delight. Now, screenwriter Joyce Corrington stated that in developing the script for the Mega Man, the character of Lisa, played by Cash, was created due to the rise of the Black Power movement, which was politically prominent in American culture at the time the film was made. She goes on to remark that this created an effective and interesting dynamic between the characters of Lisa and Neville, and of course, Rosalind Cash kind of looks like, a power Black Panther supporter. Now, Heston wrote his autobiography that Omega Man was Cash's first leading role in the film, and was understandably a little edgy about doing a love scene with him. Heston explained, "It was in the '70s that I realized a generation of actors had grown up who saw me in terms of the iconic roles that I remember from their childhoods. It's a spooky feeling," she told me, to screw Moses. Well, she said in published reports, Charlton Heston was such a handsome man, it was not say confusing for her, but he's the ultimate man. I mean, he was naked, almost 3/4 naked in most of the movies he did. He would rarely have his shirt on. Now, the script for the Omega Man did contain a scene in which Lisa visits her parents' grave. Unknown to Neville, Lisa is pregnant, and she seeks comfort from her deceased parents before she and Neville leave the city forever. While Lisa is talking to her parents' grave, she hears a sound and investigates a crypt. In it, she spots a female family member depositing a dead newborn mutant. Lisa can see the mother's grief and empathizes with the woman's loss, despite their being on different sides. Lisa believes that all children, including unborn baby, will suffer the same fate. Later, Lisa returns to Neville and tells him the woman in the crypt. Neville asks Lisa if she took care of things, and Lisa responds that she may be a grieving parent in a few months, so she will not kill a grief-stricken mother. Neville is shocked at first, but it embraces Lisa. While the scene was cut from the final film, the screen credit for A Woman in Cemetery Crypt remains. Now, the film opened in Houston at 3 theaters in July '71. Now, at the film review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, the Omega Man received mixed reviews with a combined average positive score of 65%. Now, Howard Thompson of the New York Times hated it. He said the climax is as florid and phony as can be, but Variety described the film as an extremely literate science fiction drama. Ebert gave the show a 2 out of 4 and called the mutants ridiculous, while Gene Siskel hated it, writing that the director must have resembled a juggler trying to keep 4 dramatic balls aloft. Now, Kevin Tollins in the LA Times had a problem with some plot holes, and the film was strictly a potboiler, but his wet pretensions never runs dry. The Washington Post Tom Shale said, director Sagal displays no great affinity for science fiction. He's from TV, and he generally upholds interest. He can certainly handle the shocks and suspense, which are both abundant and enjoyable, in a Saturday matinee way. And this is kind of a Saturday afternoon movie. Now, director Tim Burton said in an interview for the 2009 Museum of Modern Art exhibit that if I was alone on a desert island, I'd probably pick something that I could relate to. Probably the Mega Man with Charlton Heston. I don't know why it's one of my favorite movies, but it is. In another interview with the Australian Centre for Moving Image, Burton remarked that no matter how many times he has seen it, if it was on television, he would stop to watch it. He said that when he originally saw the Mega Man, it was the first instant he recalled seeing the use of certain types of cheesy one-liners in film. Now, the film is full of irony-tinged one-liners that are spoken in a manner to elicit a comic response, and he compares this to Arnold Schwarzenegger's I'll Be Back in his movies. Now, as with The Last Man on Earth, the Mega Man wasn't to Richard Matheson's liking. On the other hand, it didn't provoke much reaction from the author either. The Mega Man was so removed from my book that it didn't even bother me, he said. Now, it grossed $30,000 its first week and went on to earn $4 million in theatrical rentals. Now, ironically, the Human League did a single called Life on Your Own, which was based on the film. Now, in the scene in which Heston's character watches Woodstock inspired Joel Hodgson to create Mr. Science Theater 3000. Now, the first short in the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror special, The Omega Man, is an homage to the film, which is basic story happening in Springfield. Now, famous Paraguayan Argentine comic book writer Robin Wood and Argentine artist Ricardo Vilgrán created the 1970 classic Argentine Historica comic Mark, strictly based on the Omega Man's post-apocalyptic world. The hero and protagonist Mark is also based on Neville's character, concept of man of action. Now, Bob McKenzie, not a hockey guy, in the beginning of the film Strange Brew states it was kind of a one-man force like Charlton Heston and Omega Man. Did you see it? It was beauty. Now, the 1981 album Ghost in the Machine by the Police featured track Omega Man, also stylized as Omega Man, written by Andy Summers, based on the film. Now, this goes under survival film genre. I have seen the movie about 15 times, and it's always a 3 out of 4. There's plot holes like crazy, but to see Charlton Heston carry a movie, and like he carried Planet of the Apes in a lot of ways as the only talking human for, the last, hour and a half. But I think Charlton Heston, the 2 Planet of the Apes movies, this, Soylent Green, you look at all the other movies, he was the king of box office in the 70s because consistently, you look at Earthquake, you look at Airport 77, there was a lot of good shit going on involving Charlton Heston. Like, Charlton Heston, it's hard to, he went more right-wing when he was older. But I think Charlton Heston, again, you got John Wayne, okay, box office draw. You got Charlton Heston, okay, and you have in the modern era, Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, or whatever. But we saw Charlton Heston, no matter what he did, it was interesting. I did a podcast a while ago on his football movie, which it was so bad I don't even want to mention it 3 times. You might do a remake in the 2020 Netflix universe. But my God, there's it's freaky. It's like it's a comic book movie, really, if you look at it. If now, should you do a fourth version of I Am Legend or whatever? The Will Smith version, like I said, it's not. It's like a 2 out of 4. It's okay. I mean, but some of the scenes are very interesting. But some of the pull at your heartstrings with the dog and all that. But Rosalind Cash was a person of their time. Only in the mid 1970s, if you still existed, if you had a post-apocalyptic world, the only people who would survive would be soldiers or doctors or revolutionaries because they're preparing for the apocalypse. So it's kind of ironic that Zerbe as a journalist and Cash's character and the Heston character are the 3 months. But Anthony Zerbe, get out of my house. That's why in the Dead Zone. But I saw him in the Dead Zone at the theater, and literally was a guy in the crowd in French saying, "That's the fucker from the Omega Man," because there was different cameos like Jackie Burroughs was in that, and some of the top Canadian actors, and Tom Skerritt was in it. But we have somebody in the Dead Zone recognizing Zerbe in the audience in French. C'est l'homme de Omega Man, or le man Omega. So, but her scenes in Omega Man, like I said, I know they've influenced science fiction, especially Canadian science fiction in the 1990s. It's a movie. So if you haven't seen it before, don't pay for it. See if you can find a copy. A shared one or streaming service. Again, watch this in Soylent Green back to back, and you see the differences between, like, Charlton Heston is more sexual in Soylent Green for obvious reasons. Look at the furniture. I'm not scared to say I had a big crush on Lee Taylor Young when I was a kid. Boys, were I shocked that Ryan O'Neal, I heard Ron O'Neal was cheating on her. I should have called her up, but I was only a 9-year-old kid. I wasn't going to marry Lee Taylor Young. But it's weird how it goes because he plays a different sort of sexuality here. Like, he hasn't got laid since the zombies took over, so he probably must be horny. And Rosalind Cash, she's a beautiful lady, but I don't think Charlton Heston would try to sleep with her unless it literally was the end of the world. So he could be the last woman left on the planet. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for dropping in. Enjoy the Edmonton-Vancouver game tonight. If you're watching later, if you come off my channel, I'd like to thank you to everybody because we've just passed 2,750 subscribers on the channel. And again, it doesn't seem like much, but these are similar numbers to the community newspapers circulation I was working for in Miramichi, Dalhousie, and Campbellton in the 1990s, and I appreciate everybody that drops in. But just remember, Charlton Heston is a top 10 box office star of all time. There's no denying this. I did story on John Wayne, but Heston is up there, boys. And by the way, new Planet of the Apes movie coming out. I think in the series that's number 6, 12, 13, 12, 13. Anyway, check it out. And like I said, it's just this movie should be seen on a Sunday afternoon in the summer with a 2-liter pop. Hopefully not too much sugar, a little bit of popcorn, and just you can laugh at the good lines and laugh at the bad scenes because there's some terrible cinematography in here. It's a TV movie on the big screen is what I'm saying. Thanks for listening. Bye.